Hi everyone, and thank you for joining the Giant webinar on your employee portal and payslip. My name is Emma and I'm an Employee Support Officer here at Giant. So throughout this webinar, we're going to discuss how to log into your portal and what you should do if you're locked out or if you need to reset your login details. Next will be a brief overview of your portal, and then we'll move on to the functions of your portal as well. We'll also discuss the P45, the New Starter Declaration, also known as the P46, and their purposes. Then we'll move on to the latter part of the webinar and discuss the payslip breakdown, where we'll take a closer look at the invoice reconciliation and payslip, as well as looking at discussers that may affect your net payment as well. So firstly, to locate your employee portal, you'll need to start by searching for www.giantgroup.com. Once you're on this page, you'll need to select Login, then Umbrella Employee. Selecting Agency or Client will redirect you to an incorrect page. On the mobile site, you'll simply need to select the three bars on the top right, highlighted in the example on the right side of the page here. Once you've selected Umbrella Employee, you'll be redirected to your login page. You'll simply need to submit your username and password and then verify that you're not a robot. This is a more advanced safety feature which just ensures that ComputerBot is not attempted to access your profile. And once completed, please press Login. So currently we use a two-stage login process for your added security. As you can see, you'll be asked to select how you'd like to receive an authentication code. This is either via text message or email. Once you select your preferred method, please allow up to 1 minute for the code to be sent. And just a quick note on this, if you do request a code multiple times, our system will continue to generate new codes. Once a new code is generated, the previous code becomes invalid for security reasons. So please be patient with this process. Once you have received your code, please enter this in the verification box, as shown on the right here, and this will grant access to your portal. And once logged in, you'll find your home page. The menu options are accessible along the left-hand side here. To the center, you'll find your key notifications, and we'll look closer at these in a moment. However, I would just like to quickly highlight the refer a friend option at the bottom right-hand corner. We are currently offering £120 for any referrals that are made. In the top right, you'll find your name and employee ID number, and selecting this will bring you to your profile and logout options. And right next to this are a couple of icons. The first is the letter icon, which will take you to your messages. You can use this option to communicate with the employee support team. And we also have the Help Center icon, and this is a helpful page that addresses frequent queries regarding timesheets, payslips, payments, and more. So now moving on to the key notifications, you'll notice that first shown is your last pay date with a link to your latest payslip. Next to this is your last timesheet entered against its week ending date, and you can use this as a reference to ensure that your timesheets have been entered up to date. Next is your assignment's end date. You can use this as a tool to track your current assignment and to ensure that your end date is up to date and accurate. Following this is a display of any messages you may have received from Giant and a link to view these. We then have a display of your tax code and an accompanying description. Any changes to your tax code will show here as well. We then move on to your pension status. So if you are auto-enrolled into the Nest pension scheme, which auto-enrollment occurs 90 days after joining Giant, you can view this here. Next is the confirmation of your Giant Advantage status, and if opted in, it will state so here. Next is confirmation of your holiday pay scheme and an explanation of what your holiday pay scheme means. And now moving on to the menu items along the left side of the portal. Our first section is dedicated to entering timesheets. If your agency uses data exchange with Giant, you will not need to submit your timesheets on your portal. It will inform you that you do not need to do this as well. Data exchange is an agreement between your agency or client and Giant to share timesheet information. So when an agency uses data exchange, they will send a payment file with your days or hours worked and will raise the invoice using an automated process. On the other hand, if your agency or client do not use data exchange, then you'll have access to this timesheets page. An entered timesheet generates an invoice to your agency or client, so it effectively bills them for the hours or days that you've submitted. Timesheets are also important to our allocations process, as any funds received will need to be matched to a corresponding timesheet. And now moving on to entering in your timesheets. To enter your timesheets, you'll start by selecting the relevant week ending date. If you're working on multiple assignments simultaneously, please ensure that you have selected the correct assignment. However, if you are only working on one, it will automatically select it for you. The assignment rate for the contract will display in the rate box. And again, if for any reason you are working at a different assignment rate, for example, you're entering overtime or simply work at multiple assignment rates, please ensure that you have inputted the correct one. There is a box for a purchase order number. You'll only need to add a purchase order number if you have been provided one by the agency or client. Otherwise, you can just ignore this box. And lastly, you'll enter your days or hours worked. For those working on a daily rate, please ensure that you have added hours to your timesheet as well. Due to recent legislation, hours worked are a mandatory part of itemised payslips. So for this reason, you must provide total hours as well as days when submitting your timesheet. Without the total hours, the timesheet will just not register. Any timesheets that are submitted will display immediately on your timesheet tracker, so please use this tool to check that timesheets have been added correctly. And please also ensure that timesheets have been submitted to your agency for authorization. And our next section is payments, and the first option is for your payslips. At the top of the page, there is a video icon which provides a detailed explanation of your payslip. Should you struggle to understand your payslip illustration, please use this for a step-by-step analysis of what the sections of your payslip mean. This is a helpful tool as it does address frequent queries concerning the payslip. Your P60 for the previous financial year will be available above your payslips, and you'll also find a useful feature that allows you to download all of your payslips and P60 at once. Your payslips will be found in chronological order and they are available to you 24/7. And the next option under your payments is the timesheet tracker. This is a useful tool for tracking when your payments are received and when they enter the payroll process. And you can also view all week ending dates processed to date. The timesheet tracker is also useful for checking when an invoice was submitted to your agency or client. And as mentioned before, any timesheets that are submitted will display immediately on your timesheet tracker. You'll also be able to view any credit notes raised by Giant. This could be at the request of your agency, for example, requesting a deduction on your payment, or our finance team correcting any overpayments made, and these will reflect in the credited column. Next onto the payments tab is the holiday pay section. This option is only available to those that have opted for accrued holiday pay. This means that holiday pay is retained from the assignment income, set aside, and then processed only when requested. On this page, you'll find the total number of hours available to you and its translation as a total holiday pay balance. And to request a holiday pay, simply select the week ending date and then input the number of hours you would like and then press submit. Holiday pay is accrued on an annual basis and it should be claimed within the year that it is accrued. And if you wish to claim holiday pay, we ask that you submit your request at least 3 days before your next payroll. And the final page onto the payments tab is for requesting advances. So an advance is a payment in advance of your normal payday. And to request one, you'll need to have an authorized and pending timesheet to be processed. Typically, we'll request a promise to pay from your agency, and this will form the basis for your advance. We can also process an advance based on funds allocated on your timesheet tracker, so it is a good option if you ever need an urgent same-day payment. You can request a specific value for an advance or the maximum amount, which will be calculated by the employee support team. We do charge £45 for this service and will reclaim the advance total when your next payroll is processed. And the next section relates to your contract documents. Here you'll find all relevant HR documents for your employment, and these can be downloaded for your records. You can also view and download your assignment schedules from here as well. And the final option is for billable expenses. So just like timesheets, if your agency uses data exchange with Giant, you'll not need to use this option as we'll receive an instruction to pay your expenses. If your agency or client do not use the data exchange system, they will need an invoice before paying any agreed expenses to Giant. And to generate this invoice, please begin by selecting the week ending date the expense was for. The assignment will populate automatically, and if you do work on multiple, please ensure the correct one is selected. Then enter a purchase order number, only if it is relevant to you, and then select the expense type and add the total value in the amount box. So please be aware that as a VAT registered company, any invoices processed via Giant will have an additional VAT value of 20% added on top. So for example, if you need to bill expenses of £100, you'll need to submit an expense request of £120 to your agency, and the £20 will account for the VAT. So if you are submitting billable expenses, please ensure that the agency or client have been advised of the additional VAT value. So now returning to the home page, we'll take a closer look at the icons we saw earlier. Should you need to communicate with the employee support team, you can send a message via the portal using the letter icon. Under your messages, you can find a history of all communications between yourself and Giant. And to send a message, first select the letter icon displayed to the upper right-hand corner of the home page, as described previously. You'll find the option to send a message, so select this and then compose your query. And there's also a paperclip sign that can be used to attach any documents to your message as well. Now, if you get your password, you will need to use the Forgot Password option found below the username and password on the login page. You should use the Forgot Password option if you do not remember your username or password or both. And start by inputting your employee ID, which is a unique 6-digit number. Then enter your email and date of birth. These will need to match the details provided to us. So if you have multiple emails, please use the one that you provided to us. So this will trigger a Forgot Password email to the primary email on file. Please follow the instructions in the email by inputting your user ID and reference and adding a new username and password. And once completed, please click Reset Login, and now you'll be able to log back into the portal. So if you've been locked out of your account, you'll need to use Get to Login rather than Forgot Password. You'll usually find that you've been locked out after failing to enter the correct credentials numerous times. And a clear indication that you have been locked out of your account is when you cannot get past the Employee ID page under the Forgot Password option. So under Get Login, input your employee ID and the reset form will become available. Complete this form choosing a new username and password and submit the reset details. And once done, please log in. Okay, so now we're moving on to the payslip section of the webinar where we'll discuss the following. So what is a P45 and what is the new starter declaration? This was also known as the P46. We're going to learn how to understand the invoice reconciliation and also the payslip sections as well, and then anything that might affect your net pay amount. So a P45 is provided by your previous employer and provides Giant or your next employer with the relevant information concerning your year-to-date earnings and your tax code. Providing a P45 is essential during the onboarding process, as it does help Giant to determine how taxes will be applied to your pay. And it is essential that prior to your first payment, a P45 is received and updated on our systems. If for any reason you are unable to provide a P45 to Giant during onboarding, we would have completed a new starter declaration with you. This is formally known as the P46. With the new starter declaration, you're asked to confirm 3 statements. Statement A, if this is your only job during this tax year. Statement B, if this is now your only job but you've worked elsewhere before. Or Statement C, if you're earning some income elsewhere, for example via another employer or pension. You can see on the slide here what tax code each statement reflects. Each statement has its own meaning when it relates to the tax code that will be applied on your payments that are processed. Lastly is a DO tax code, which can be put in place when you've made no selection. Typically, however, Giant will just simply apply the week 1 or month 1 code if there is no selection made. As you can see on the screen, your payslips are available via the Giant Employee Portal 24/7 for your ease. You can find this via the Payments tab that we discussed before, and then selecting the payslip option on the Employee Portal. The payslip provides you with an itemized explanation of your payroll. So here is an overview of the entire payslip. Your payslip is comprised of a few key features. So firstly, to the top right, you'll find your personal information. This provides details on your pay date, tax period, tax code, national insurance number, and pay type, which will either be weekly or monthly. Below this is the invoice reconciliation. So your agency will quote you the umbrella limited company rate. This is the amount payable to Giant and not you. So to get to your actual gross pay, we have to make a number of deductions that need to be made, including employers' national insurance, apprenticeship levy, and also our weekly net margin. The remaining balance is your gross pay, which is subject to PAYE tax and employers' national insurance. Following this is the payslip. So this illustrates the calculation of PAYE tax and employee national insurance contributions, amongst other employee deductions, and we'll go into further details about these larger sections in the next slides. Lastly, if you ever need to contact HMRC for tax code queries, you can view our PAYE reference number on your payslip in the bottom right-hand corner. Now here is a concentrated look at the invoice reconciliation, so the upper half of the payslip. Firstly, you're presented with the week ending date being processed, along with the total units. This is the assignment income. This is Giant's income and not your gross pay. Next follows the employer's costs. This includes the employer's national insurance contribution at 15%, the apprenticeship levy at 0.5%, and other employment costs. And you can find more information about these on HMRC's website as well. Also displayed on the invoice reconciliation is the employer's pension contribution, which is retained from the assignment income alongside the accrued holiday pay. After the employer's costs and the other deductions are retained, we reach the taxable gross pay, and this is the amount subject to PAYE tax and national insurance. Now, moving down to the payslip section, the taxable gross income from the invoice reconciliation is carried forward to the payslip, and this is broken down into basic pay, conditional pay, and holiday pay. If you are on accrued holiday pay, you'll notice that the holiday line will be missing, as holiday is retained from the assignment income and will be displayed on the invoice reconciliation instead. But for those on a rolled up holiday pay plan, a line will be visible stating the holiday total rolled into that payment that week or month. From the taxable gross pay, we'll calculate your employee's tax, national insurance, and any other employee deduction, such as pensions, any attachment of earnings, or student loan requests that Giant may have. And after these deductions have been made, the net value is arrived at. So these are the factors that may affect your net pay. We have tax codes and changes to the tax code. There's also supplementary runs or additional payments, and monthly payroll in a weekly pay cycle. So first of all, please be advised that tax is calculated when payroll is processed, not when the work is completed. In this financial year, the standard tax code is 1257L. This provides a weekly tax allowance of £241.73 and a monthly tax allowance of £1,047.50. To calculate your monthly or weekly tax allowance, you simply take the numeric values, for example 1257L, the L is standard, so this will be £12,570, and then divide this by 12 months if on monthly pay or 52 weeks if on weekly pay. A tax-free allowance relates to the amount of income not subject to tax deductions, and anything above this will become taxable at the appropriate rate. We're able to receive tax codes from HMRC in the form of a P6 notification. A P6 notification can change your tax code or allowance, and this could be a reduction or increase. A P6 notification will also override any prior information held, so if you do provide your P45 and then a P6 is received, we'll apply the tax code from the P6 as this comes directly from HMRC. Our payroll department download the P6 notifications every Tuesday, so if you speak with HMRC on Wednesday, the P6 will not be received until the following Tuesday, and once downloaded, it will be applied in the next available payroll. So a cumulative tax code allows Giant to take your year-to-date earnings into consideration when processing your payroll. Using the diagram here, you can see in the first chart on the left that we start with a weekly tax allowance of £241. This is based on the tax code 1257L. With a cumulative tax code, any unused tax allowance will be carried over to the next payment. So, for example, if you were to miss payroll in 1 week, the unused tax allowance will carry over to the next week. So referring back to the diagram, the first week's tax allowance of £241 was not used. So for the following week, it carries over to give an allowance of £482. If the tax allowance is then not used again, the cumulative allowance of £482 plus the current week's tax-free total comes into play, giving you £723 tax-free. And this will continue for however many weeks you do not receive payment. So on a cumulative tax code, if you go 10 weeks without receiving payment, you'll eventually receive the benefit of 10 times £241, which reduces a large tax allowance. On a cumulative tax code, it is also possible to calculate tax adjustments. So if you are over-deducted in tax in 1 week, in the subsequent weeks, your tax may be readjusted, as we can take into consideration your year-to-date earnings against the tax paid to date. So to summarise, if you pay more tax in 1 week, your next payment could be adjusted to consider where you paid more tax, reducing your tax paid. On the other hand, taking a look now at the right diagram, if you're on a non-cumulative tax code, so if you're on a week 1 or month 1 basis, we do not consider previous earnings when calculating your tax due. As you can see, the weekly tax allowance of £241 is the default tax-free total for each payroll. If you have a gap in your payment, you'll not receive the benefit of an accrued tax allowance. And if your year-to-date earnings indicate that you should be provided with a large tax-free allowance, we would be unable to apply this, as we would not be able to consider your year-to-date earnings. We would have to provide a tax allowance of £241, and then anything above this would be subject to taxation. So it is also important to understand the tax thresholds, as this will determine the percentage of tax to be calculated on payroll. So earnings up to and including £50,270 are taxed at 20%. Earnings over £50,270 to £125,140 are taxed at 40%, and anything earned over £125,140 is taxed at 45%. Employees on a BR tax code are taxed at a flat rate of 20%. Those on a DO tax code are taxed at a flat rate of 40%, and those on a D1 tax code are taxed at a flat rate of 45%. An L tax code is a standard code, for example 1257L. This provides a standard annual allowance of £12,570, so you can replace the L with a zero. Whereas a T tax code is a temporary tax code, which typically means that the code is under review with HMRC. And a K code is typically presented when you're predicted to earn over £100,000 in a tax year, or HMRC believe that you do owe some tax. So you would have heard me mention a supplementary run previously. This is where a payment run occurs more than once in the same tax period. So for example, the tax week runs from Saturday to Friday this financial year. Therefore, if you're paid on Monday and again on Wednesday, you'll experience a supplementary run on your second payment. Using a standard tax code of 1257L as an example, you'll be provided with £241 tax-free each week. When paid on Monday, your tax allowance is used and tax is just calculated as normal. However, if a subsequent payment were to take place on the Wednesday, a supplementary run will occur whereby no tax allowance will be provided and all income will be subject to taxation. As more of the income becomes subject to tax, you may experience higher tax, employers and employees' national insurance deductions. And as advised previously, if you are on a cumulative tax code, this should typically adjust itself in future payrolls. Also, if you receive a monthly payment in a weekly pay cycle, you may also experience higher tax deductions. If, for example, there's only a 3-week gap between payments, you would have accumulated a 3-week tax allowance for your next payroll. If Giant then receive a month's payroll, in this example 5 weeks, the tax allowance will be lower than it should be, as we'll process 5 weeks of work against 3 weeks of a tax allowance. This means that more of the income becomes subject to taxation, resulting in higher tax deductions and a reduced net pay. The difference in tax allowances would be £723, so 3 weeks of weekly allowances, as opposed to the monthly tax allowance of £1,047.50. If your agency or client will pay Giant on a monthly basis, please ensure that we have also placed you on a monthly pay type so you can always receive the appropriate tax allowance. Okay, and to summarise, we hope that you'll take away the following points. As you log into your portal, your key notifications provide important information at first glance. Your timesheet tracker and payslip sections are helpful tools in tracking your payments. There are useful links, videos, and icons on each page that will assist you with navigating the page in question if you are unsure. Our messaging system and live chat option are available to communicate with us should you need assistance. You can request advances and holiday pay comfortably from your portal. And I would like to highlight that your portal access is available 24/7 and on the go via the mobile website for your convenience. The P45 or new starter declaration provided during onboarding are critical to establishing the correct tax code. The invoice reconciliation displays the employer's costs retained from the assignment income. All payslips are easily accessible 24/7 via your portal. The payslip displays the PAYE tax and national insurance deductions amongst other employee deductions. A cumulative tax code considers year-to-date earnings, whilst a non-cumulative tax code does not. And your net pay may be affected by a supplementary run or monthly income being processed during a weekly pay cycle. So that does conclude our webinar today. Thank you all for your time. We hope that you found this session useful. If you do have any feedback or suggestions on how we can improve the portal and the features, please let us know by completing the survey after the webinar. And should you have any questions, please contact the support team via your employee portal or via the live chat feature on our website. Thank you again for dropping by. It is greatly appreciated, and have a great rest of your day.